By Janice Stanfield.
What?
Janice Stanfield.
Janice Stanfield, that's the composer? Okay. Never heard of her, but thank you, Janice. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone online. I'm Reverend Karyl Huntley, and we are beginning March. There we go. So, 1/6 of the year into your joyous life. It's been completed. So are you feeling 1/6 more joy? Yeah. Okay, good. Excellent. So what we're working on for this whole year is whatever our joy level, there can be more. And because we are a spiritual center, our joy level is not by happenstance. It's not by fate. It is by a couple of things that happen inside us. First being our awareness, our consciousness, our belief system. And we talk about that all the time, and I'll talk about more of that as we go, and we can watch the children because they're irresistible. Everybody's eyes. Hi. What did I just say? Yeah, right. Joy is because of a shift of consciousness on the inside followed by action. That's what this whole year is about, and all of the ways that we can do that. So January was about raising our energy for this whole year, and the spiritual message was energy is the activity of God. February was about love, and the spiritual message was love is the self-givingness of God. And March is about work. And the spiritual message is divine expression is our natural calling. Isn't that just so great? That's the theme for the month. Divine expression is our natural calling. So our calling is sometimes what we make money at, and sometimes it's other things that we give, that just, we've got that skill, and we just give whatever it is into the world, and it hits its mark, because in the economy of God, there's never a gift without a receiver that already wants it. So when we live our calling, it is really reestablishing the harmony of the entire universe. That's how important it is. So we have gifts to give to the world, and we are happy, joyful, growing, and centered when we find that calling and we follow it. So for the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday, I've been in San Diego. I was teaching the ministerial students in that campus, and I was amazed. I had 13 students. One of them was from Alaska. One of them was from one of the Carolinas. One of them was from Chicago. A few of them were nearby, but most of them came from far afield, and they had found their calling. All of these people had the ministry in their sight, not as their first career, but it was their calling, and they were going for it. And I just was amazed at the dedication to fly for the weekend. You know, my class was Thursday and Friday, and then Friday night and Saturday they had another class, and I knew how tired they were after I worked them for 10 hours. So the goal of the month, this month for us, is to aim higher in our expression and see if that does not contribute to happiness. So Gailya did our altar this morning, and she has this, you have to come up and see it. It's such a I mean, Gailya does flowers like nobody. But there's a little card here from her brother from Korea, and there's this little bitty spaceship that's kind of headed for the moon that she thought was the epitome of aiming higher. So you have to come up and take a close look at it. The students that I taught this weekend were aiming higher. You know, some of them, this was their last class, and they were finishing up, and they were nervous because it was their last class. And some of the students were just beginning, and it was their first class, and they were nervous because it was their first class. So when we follow our calling, sometimes it's exploring and an adventure and all that the song contained. You know, sometimes it's joyful and sometimes it's really challenging. That's what my talk is about today. But no matter where you are in your life cycle, many people may be retired, but I just want to say if you're still here, you have a calling. I think all of you are still here that I'm seeing. So you definitely have a calling. So the title of the talk today is Navigating Unfamiliar Territory Required for Growth. Because it seems that when we aim higher, when we do something that we haven't ever done before, with that effort of aiming higher, we find ourselves in an expression where we don't know what we're doing. Is this familiar to anyone? You know, if you aim higher, that you get to those places where you look around and you go, I have no skill set for this. I do not know what I am doing. This is very hard work going through this. I am very challenged, and gosh, I've done that before. But as we move through it, as we navigate the unfamiliar territory, it does lead us to greater happiness and greater inspiration. So the inspiration for this talk came from the book that we are working through for this whole year, and it's just a little sentence in the March chapter. It says, "No one loves the familiar and the routine more than I do, but I decided to stretch myself to tackle a work challenge that would force me to navigate unfamiliar territory." So I thought, that's good for us all, navigating unfamiliar territory. Later on in the chapter, she has this entire section called Enjoy the Fun of Failure. So that's not, I am going to speak to that a little bit, because sometimes failure does accompany the unfamiliar territory, yes? Yeah. And we move right through that, and we grow and achieve greater happiness for aiming higher. That's what the message is. So in our life, we have those familiar learning lodges. So here we've got the learning lodges, and this is kind of the staging area for all of the ways in our life that we can aim higher. So of course, the first one I want to talk about is expression. That's that arrow that goes from our heart out into the world. So when we are in our learning lodge of expression, and we're saying, I am going to aim higher, it could be stepping into a new job, and of course that's unfamiliar territory, but it's not the only change in this area of our life, in the learning lodge of our life, because sometimes we get fired, right? That also really puts us into the learning lodge and unfamiliar territory. You know, the only time I ever got fired was actually from this center. I was a member a long time ago, and I was on staff when Reverend Lloyd was the minister, and then when he left, Reverend Jim Munson came, and I think that Reverend Jim thought that Lloyd managed the church kind of like an Italian family, which makes sense, because Lloyd is Italian. And he had lots and lots of people on staff doing little bits of work. I did quite a bit of work, I thought, but Jim said he was going to pare down the staff. Nothing against me or anybody that he fired all in one day, but it put me into unfamiliar territory, because where I had been making most of my money was gone. He also fired my mom on the same day, and we lived in the same household with my 2-year-old son. So we were all in unfamiliar territory, but what it did as I navigated the unfamiliar territory was that I started my ministry earlier than I thought I was going to. I started my ministry while I was still in ministerial school, and started doing services at night in the home of someone who became a member of my first community. So, you know, there is no complaint in me about that, because that was one of the places of the unfamiliar territory that I managed successfully. I grew from that. I have joy from that. The hero's journey was accomplished, all of that. But let me go through the other learning lodges, okay, because it might remind you of some things, like it reminded me of some things, okay? So let's go to health and body. And I think the greatest unfamiliar territory, really, for anybody is pregnancy. Now, do we have anybody pregnant here? No. But you know what? We are, everybody's going, ugh, no. But, you know, we are all pregnant with potential. That prayer that Marilyn prayed at the beginning, we are all pregnant with potential. And pregnancy, I'm telling you, puts you into the unfamiliar territory that is, it's that point of no return. You've got to do something with what's inside you. And usually you do something with that for years and years and years and years. And it continues to be unfamiliar territory. But there are other things that have to do with body and stuff. And one of them is weight loss. One of them is bodybuilding. So this is a self-directed unfamiliar territory. But even with self-directed unfamiliar territory, that magic of unfamiliar territory does something to you, and things always come up that you're not expecting, right? And then, of course, there is that thing that we have with bodies sometimes, and that is a diagnosis that we don't want. And it happens upon us. And even that, when it throws us into such a dramatic new place, if we focus on moving through the unfamiliar territory, we will find the blessings and the joy absolutely guaranteed. Because remember, God does not give us anything to just annoy us or hurt us or damage us in any way. Whatever the unfamiliar territory is filled with blessings. So let's go on to the abundance area of our life, time and money freedom, or bondage. So the two extremes here, we have the loss of a job or the winning of a lottery. Did both of those show up? There we go. Loss of a job or winning of a lottery, equally challenging in different ways, both putting us into an area of absolute unfamiliarity, and all those places in between about the boss and the responsibilities of the job, and whether we've managed our money properly and so forth. So each brand new place that we find ourselves in this unfamiliar territory requires a reevaluation and a new management of our consciousness and our beliefs. So let me explain that for a little bit. Because in this philosophy, Marilyn started out her prayer with saying we are going to the area of cause. We know that our consciousness, that is what we are aware of, what we believe in, what we're worried about, what we focus on energetically and with our mind, all of that is creative. What we put our attention to makes more of itself in our life. And so when we are in that place of the unfamiliar territory, if we take a moment and we say, this is unfamiliar to me, but if I could shift it right now, which of course we can, what would I want more of? Would I want more joy in this moment? Would I want more peace in this moment? And that ability to manage our consciousness and our beliefs is the curricula for every single class that we teach. It is what happens in every single practitioner appointment or prayer. If you get a prayer from these beloveds at the end of service, what they are going to help you do is manage your consciousness, because when we pay attention to that unfamiliar territory and work through it with consciousness and positive action, it leads to growth and it leads to joy. So of course we have one more learning lodge, and that's relationships. Boy, that's a big learning lodge for me, and I see some nods out there. So anything from new love to the emergence of anger or hurt in a relationship always puts us into the territory that we're not familiar with. And then, of course, the biggest game changer is the death, the transition of someone that we have known in the body that all of a sudden doesn't inhabit their body anymore, but they inhabit the universe. That is unfamiliar territory. So what seems the most manageable when we find ourselves in new territory is that we have consciously and voluntarily put ourselves there. We have aimed higher. and we have said, on the trajectory of my life, I am going to shift and move into a new place that I kind of have a little inkling of what it's about, and I'm going to see what happens there. And then when I see what happens there, I'm going to use my spiritual tools, and I am not going to get overwhelmed. I am going to work through this, and I am going to get to a higher place, and then that's going to be my new normal, and then I'm going to aim higher than that. Now, doesn't that sound rational and great and just what we all want to do? Of course it does. So even when we do that, even when we plan our aiming higher, something happens. It is God's little surprise, because, you know, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun if we could actually predict everything that was going to happen to us, right? We don't want that. So one of my students this weekend let us all know that she was going to remarry a man that she had married 40 years earlier. She had had a 20-year marriage and then a 20-year separation from this man. He had had another marriage in the middle of that, 20 years. So 40 years later, they are getting married again. So you would think that this is some unfamiliar territory. It's kind of familiar, you know? It's the same guy. 40 years later, you know, they've both done a tremendous amount of work. They're coming together with new agreements and new hopes, just like 40 years ago. And so you think that they would know what they're doing. And she was a basket case for all of the things that she was still in the mystery about. And we did this really powerful ritual with her of sending her through the portal of, you know, the bride to the wife, and it was so touching for everybody. There was a part when she's just like, you know how when there's a way you can tear up that you kind of just overflow and dribble, and then there's a way that you tear up and it's like bang, and so she was like bang with these tears, and then everybody else was too, and so the portal became just this magical place where other people said, I went through the portal with her for some things in my life that I'm working with that I don't know what I'm doing about. And so it is that willingness to step into the unknown with the faith that you have all of the support that you need. But that's the easy one. The hard one is when we are challenged with those things that come into our life that we don't like, that we didn't see them coming. They are a tremendous challenge for us that pulls up for us those emotions that we don't like, fear and sadness and anger, and with the added layer for metaphysicians, why did I create this, right? Because if you've been in this long enough, you know that your consciousness is causative. And so if some huge thing shows up in your life that you go, I did not call this in, it makes you challenge and question everything. And I think one of the reasons that it makes us challenge and question everything is because we have this linear thing going on where we think the cause comes first and the effect comes later. We put something into awareness and prayer and on our vision boards and so forth and create a first cause. And then we expect the effect to come after that. So when an effect shows up out here, we think, what the hell was the cause that caused that? So what I think is that there's another place that a cause can come from. Let me see if this is it. Yep. The cause can be out in front of us. This is a quote from Terence McKenna. For me, the key to unlocking what is going on with history, creativity, and progressive processes of all sorts is to see the state of completion at the end as a kind of higher dimensional object that casts an enormous flickering shadow over the lower dimensions of organization, of which this universe is one, and which your life is one. So what happens is that there's a cause out in front of us that pulls us. And it's not even, we're not aware of it all the time. It's something that our soul does. Our soul wants a particular kind of growth. And so it puts this beacon out in front of us, and we go there, and on the way, we get all riled up. So it's a call to growth that is hidden in unfamiliar territory. It's that beacon out in front of us that is the unfamiliar territory that we have to go through in order to get there. And because it is so desired by our soul, we are pulled through the discomfort. And it is very uncomfortable sometimes. So when I look back at the greatest pain in my life, it actually is responsible for the greatest growth, the greatest realization, the greatest clarity, the greatest good for my ministry and my life that I could ever imagine. I haven't talked on Sunday about the abortion I had. I have talked in class about it. Before I had children, I had an abortion to save a relationship because I thought that was what I had to do. I thought that that was the course of action that would get me what I wanted. And I did not know that it would be the worst self-inflicted pain that I could ever do to myself. And that pain reappeared. It reappeared months and a year or more later, until I learned the lesson and integrated that unfamiliar territory into the fabric of my life. So the lesson, and to not drag this out too much, is to know that when you go against your own nature, it is the greatest violence that you can do to yourself. It never, ever, ever turns out well. And realigning to my natural state and the forgiveness that was necessary for myself and the man led to an amazing healing. So I want to make sure that you know that I believe in choice. I absolutely believe in choice. And I absolutely believe that we do not kill souls. When we abort a fetus, we do not kill a soul, because souls are immortal. You are immortal. Nothing can ever happen to your soul. You're here. And here may change, and it will. But we don't, that's not what was going on with me. What was going on with me was I wanted to be a mom more than anything in the world. And that was not the act that was congruent with my nature. So, what is our natural state? Our natural state is our way of loving. Our natural state is our way of being peaceful, is our way of being creative. I mean, those qualities of God, love, peace, power, joy, beauty, abundance, balance, creativity, all of those things are personal with each one of us. And we act according to those personal qualities in our life, and we act with congruity, and we get all the kinds of growth and joy and advancement spiritually that we want. And when we act out of congruity, we go and spiral in the other direction, and it's not good for us. So the lesson, I believe, is to be true to ourselves in our expression and our calling. And yes, we will go through unfamiliar territory. And yes, that big cause is out in front of us. And that big cause to be a conscious parent pulled me through this bad time in my life and gave me such clarity on this issue that I have helped many, many people in counseling just by asking, what is your nature and what are you doing to support it? That's very valuable for me and for you. So it's all good. It pulled me into that sacred fire of purification and great growth and great joy on the other side. So the deep lesson, my darlings, is to not resist the pain your choices cause you or the circumstances that seem to come upon you. And to say, when you find yourself in unfamiliar territory that looks like there's alligators all around, say to yourself, this is required for my growth. So, oh my goodness. This is, yeah, we got to figure out how to do this. This is a picture of Sisyphus. Interestingly enough, it's a very powerful and troubling picture of Sisyphus rolling a rock up a hill. And so the quote up there is, this is required for my growth. And sometimes it feels like hard work, and I really hope this next one comes in, because it's actually the same thing. So imagine that you've got Sisyphus pushing this rock up the hill, and then, there you go, the fool in the tarot. It's actually the same thing. It is proceeding with absolute faith and doing what is in front of you. And so you see, this fool is very, very happy walking off a cliff. He is going to go into unfamiliar territory with the next step. But because he's got all of his joy around him, and let me tell you, both work. Pushing the rock up the hill, the hard work works, because when you get to the top, you get to say, yay, I pushed it up the hill. In the story, of course, it falls back down. But some of us are really affirmed by that hard work and reaching the top over and over and over and over again. That works. This works too. This feeling of joy and abandon and aiming higher. He's looking up. He's aiming higher. And he is going to be in unfamiliar territory right now. So, are you ready to aim higher? Are you ready to go into unfamiliar territory? Are you ready to have all of the love and support around you, and the love and support of this community and your practitioners and your ministers? Because I want each one of us to soar. I want each one of us to reach the heights of joy and happiness and accomplishment, and over and over and over and over again go through unfamiliar territory. So are you with me here? Okay, we're going there. Thank you. And as we always do, there is a little something for everyone who wants to go deeper. The going deeper is really doing this lesson over and over and over and over again and never putting on the brakes. So the going deeper is right here. I will not resist my life. I embrace it. Can we just all say that? I will not resist my life. I embrace it. So as we move into the inner work now, taking all of this in, I know I can just hear all of the individual minds buzzing with their own experiences. I want to begin by asking you, if you would, to cradle your left hand in your right hand. And as you do, I would like you to love that left hand. And remember that the left side of the body is for receptivity. And to remember that prayer, I will not resist my life. I will receive it. I will receive that effect, whether it comes from a cause that I consciously have created and feel it is behind me, or that cause that I do not know but my soul knows that is out in front of me. I will receive what comes to me. I will receive that unfamiliar territory. I will receive the results of my exploration. I will not resist. I know that whatever comes to me is filled with blessing, filled with growth, filled with joy. And then give that left hand a squeeze and reverse, cradling your right hand in your left. And whether we are right or left-handed, in the esoteric realm, the right side of the body is for giving forth. And so it is that you recommit to the giving forth of all of the gifts that you have to give. All of the gifts. That giving forth is essential for this earthly life, because it's all about learning our lessons and giving our gifts. And so the activity of having that energy move from you out into the world in the ways that you and you alone can do, that is your calling, and you accept to give it. And putting both hands together in the familiar mudra of prayer, placing your hands before your heart, recommitting to having an open heart to give and receive, always, always, always. This is the way to peace, to spiritual poise,